I'm Emily. I'm 29 years old, and I'm an elementary school teacher here in Raleigh. For 2 years, 2 whole years, I truly believed I had the kind of marriage people post about online. The kind that makes others say, wow, she's so lucky. I thought I had found my person. You know, that one person who would protect you, cherish you, stand beside you in the darkest and brightest moments of your life. My husband, Ryan Hale, was everything I thought I wanted. He was attentive, thoughtful, always making sure I was okay. He worked from home as a cybersecurity analyst, so he was always there when I got back from school. Sometimes he'd have dinner ready, sometimes we'd cook together. He'd ask about my day, listen to my stories about the kids, laugh at the silly things they said. And every single night, without fail, he'd bring me my vitamins with a glass of water, kiss my forehead softly, and whisper, "Gotta keep my girl healthy." That little sentence used to melt something inside me. I trusted him, God, I trusted him, with everything. My heart. My life. My future. I gave him every piece of me without hesitation. But trust. Trust can be the most dangerous thing you give someone. Because what I discovered when I stopped swallowing those pills. When I finally opened my eyes to what was happening inside my own home, in my own bedroom, in my own body. It destroyed me. It shattered every memory I cherished. It tainted every moment I thought was beautiful. It turned every I love you into a lie I could never unhear. It broke the life I thought I had. It broke the man I thought I knew. It broke me. But before I tell you how everything fell apart, I need something from you. If you're listening to my story right now, please hit that like button and subscribe. I need this story to reach as many people as possible because if it can happen to me, an educated woman, a careful person, it can happen to anyone. Drop a comment down below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I read every comment. It helps me feel like I'm not alone, like my story matters. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends. You're going to want to know what I found, what I did, and how I survived. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back when everything seemed normal, or at least when I thought it was. Ryan and I got married 3 years ago. We met at an educational tech seminar. I was there with a few students for a school activity, and he was giving a talk about cyber safety. Ironic, isn't it? The man who claimed to protect systems for a living was the biggest threat to mine. But back then, I didn't know. Back then, he was charming, intelligent, kind. We dated for a year before he proposed. Our wedding was small and intimate, family, friends, people who all adored him. My mom loved him. My dad respected him. Everyone thought Ryan was perfect. And honestly, the first year was great. We traveled a little, renovated parts of our home, talked about maybe starting a family someday. I was happy. Truly, deeply happy. Then, about 6 months before everything collapsed, Ryan started this new health phase. He said he'd been reading about wellness, how important supplements were, especially for people like me who had stressful jobs. He bought a big bottle of vitamins, just normal-looking capsules, from some health store website. He said it was a special blend of vitamin D, magnesium, B-complex, things for energy, sleep, stress. He was so enthusiastic, so invested in taking care of me. "Baby, you work so hard," he'd say. "You're exhausted all the time. Let me take care of you." And I let him. God, I let him. That simple act of trust, of letting him care for me, became the beginning of my worst nightmare. At first, everything seemed normal. I'd take the vitamins, lie down, and wake up feeling rested. But slowly, subtly, things started shifting. I started noticing gaps in my memory. Nothing huge at first, just missing pieces of conversations. Ryan would say things like, "Remember when we talked about repainting the guest room?" Or, "You said we should visit your brother next month." And I'd stare at him completely blank because I had zero memory of saying any of that. He'd laugh it off, blame it on stress. "You're burning yourself out, Em. You need to relax more. But then it wasn't just conversations. I'd wake up exhausted even after 9-10 hours of sleep. At school, I'd blank out in the middle of lessons. I'd lose track of what I was teaching, what my students were doing. One of my fifth graders asked, "Mrs. Carter, are you okay?" And that's when it hit me, something was wrong. Then came the pajamas. I'd go to bed in one thing and wake up in something completely different. I'd fall asleep in an oversized tee and wake up in a silk nightgown I barely remembered owning. I asked Ryan about it. He looked at me like I was the crazy one. "Baby, you changed during the night. You were half asleep, you probably don't remember." And I accepted his explanation, because what else was I supposed to think? 2 months in, the bruises started. Tiny fingerprint-like marks on my upper arms. I noticed them one morning before work, and my stomach dropped. I asked Ryan that night, voice shaking, what they were. He looked so concerned. Too concerned. He suggested maybe I'd bumped into things, maybe I was bruising easily due to stress, maybe even anemia. He offered to make a doctor's appointment, and he did. He drove me there, sat with me like a supportive husband. The blood work came back normal. The doctor suggested stress. Maybe anxiety. Maybe medication. Ryan jumped at that idea. "It makes perfect sense," he said. "Teaching is stressful. You're overwhelmed." The doctor prescribed something. Ryan filled it immediately. More pills. More things I trusted him with. More things entering my body without question. But here's the thing. I had never been anxious before this. I loved my job. I loved my life. The anxiety came later, after the memory lapses, after the exhaustion, after the feeling that something was horribly wrong. My phone became another problem. Text messages I didn't remember sending. Plans I supposedly made. Responses written in a voice that wasn't mine, too formal, too short, no emojis. When I brought it up, Ryan said, "You probably texted half asleep. Happens to me all the time." And I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? He was my husband. Things escalated at month 4. During my planning period, my best friend, Olivia Brooks, an ER nurse, called me. She asked if I was okay. She said I'd seemed out of it when we hung out the previous weekend. She told me I looked sedated. My movements slow. My speech delayed. I was horrified. I told her I wasn't on anything except vitamins and the anxiety meds. But the way she said it planted a seed. After that, I started paying closer attention, even though I didn't want to. And that's when I noticed it. The locked drawer in Ryan's home office. Ryan's office was always off limits during work hours. He said he handled sensitive client data and needed privacy. But one afternoon, I got home early and went in to ask him something. The door was open, strange, and he wasn't there. And in the bottom drawer of his desk, a padlock. A physical padlock on a drawer that had never been locked before. My heart started pounding. Every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong. When Ryan came back upstairs that day, I forced myself to act normal. I asked him casually, pretending to scroll through my phone. "Hey, when did you start locking that bottom drawer in your office?" He barely glanced at me. "Oh, that? New client," he said smoothly, thumb still tapping his screen. "Pretty sensitive data. They require extra security. Just part of the job." His voice was calm, almost bored. He even smiled at me like it was nothing and asked what I wanted for dinner. But that padlock. I couldn't get it out of my mind. It felt like it meant something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. Over the next few weeks, I started watching Ryan carefully, not in a way he could notice, but quietly. I studied patterns. I paid attention to every small shift in his behavior. And one thing stood out more than anything. He was obsessed with the vitamins. Almost desperate. If I forgot to take them or even hesitated for a second, he'd get this look in his eyes. A flash, gone in a heartbeat, but it chilled me every time. Worry? Fear? Anger? I wasn't sure. I just knew I didn't like it. He pushed the pills toward me gently, joking about how forgetful I was being, but the joke never reached his eyes. He'd stand there, watching my throat, making sure I swallowed them. One night, about 6 weeks before everything finally exploded, I woke up around midnight. I thought I woke up. My mind was foggy, drenched in that heavy drugged feeling I was becoming used to. My body felt impossibly heavy, like someone had tied weights to my limbs. But I was conscious enough to hear Ryan's voice in the hallway. Low. Hushed. Urgent. I couldn't make out everything, but fragments cut through the haze. Tuesday night. Yeah, same price. She'll be out cold. Don't worry. My blood froze. I tried to sit up. Tried to swing my legs off the bed. Tried to make a sound. But I couldn't move. It was like being trapped in a nightmare, screaming inside but silent on the outside. My body refused to respond. I slipped back into unconsciousness before I could hear anything else. The next morning, I convinced myself it was a dream. I had to. Because the alternative, that my husband was talking about me, was too horrifying to even process. Ryan acted completely normal. He made coffee, kissed my cheek, told me to have a great day at work. He looked me straight in the eyes with love. How could someone who looked at me like that, who held me like that, be capable of something sinister? But the seed had been planted. And once doubt roots itself, it grows. I started testing him. Small things at first. I'd pretend to swallow the vitamins but tuck them under my tongue, spit them out in the bathroom. But Ryan, he started watching me more carefully. He'd ask me to open my mouth afterward, smiling like it was playful. Just making sure you're not forgetful, baby. But it wasn't playful. It felt like surveillance. Control. The night everything changed, the night that saved my life, started the same way all the other nights did. Ryan brought me my vitamins at exactly 10:30 p.m. Right on schedule. He sat on the edge of the bed, watched me take them. Kissed my forehead. Sweet dreams, beautiful. Within minutes, the familiar drowsiness hit me. That heavy dragging feeling that wrapped around my brain like fog. But something was different. The pills tasted off. They dissolved faster, almost instantly, and left a bitter, metallic aftertaste I'd never tasted before. And for the first time, real fear cut through the haze. What if I wasn't imagining it? What if Olivia was right? What if something was really wrong with those pills? In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to fight it. I was going to stay awake. I was going to see what happened after I was supposed to be unconscious. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Every cell in my body begged me to surrender to the sleep. My eyelids felt like concrete. My thoughts slipped in and out like flickering lights. But fear kept me tethered. Fear, and the truth I was finally ready to see. I dug my nails into my palms until it hurt. I bit the inside of my cheek. I counted backward from 1,000. Anything to stay awake. About 30 minutes later, Ryan came back to check on me. I heard the door open quietly. His footsteps soft on the carpet. I kept my eyes closed. Kept my breathing slow and even. I felt him lean over me. I felt his breath on my cheek. He was checking to see if I was out. After what felt like forever, he straightened up and left the room. Closed the door gently behind him. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he'd heard it. I didn't know what I was waiting for. I didn't know what was coming. But every instinct, every warning whisper in my body, told me this was the moment everything would change. At exactly 11:47 p.m., Ryan came back. I remember the time because I stared at the glowing digits on my nightstand, using them as an anchor to stay conscious. He moved quietly. Didn't turn on the lights. I watched through my barely open eyelids as he reached into his pocket. He pulled something out. Held it for a moment. Looked at me. I had to fight every instinct not to flinch. Then he left again. Silence filled the house. I waited. Listened to the creaking, settling noises of our home. Listened to my own blood rushing in my ears. At 2:13 a.m., I heard Ryan's footsteps again. But this time, he wasn't going to the kitchen. Or the bathroom. He was heading downstairs. And then, the sound that made my skin crawl. The basement door opening. We barely used the basement. It was unfinished, dusty, just storage. Why would Ryan go down there at 2 a.m.? I waited 5 minutes. The longest 5 minutes of my entire life. Then, shaking, I pulled myself out of bed. My legs wobbled, but I forced them to move. I crept to the bedroom door. Opened it inch by inch. Praying it wouldn't squeak. The hallway was dark. I moved silently toward the basement door. And then I heard it. Voices. Plural. Ryan and someone else. I pressed my ear against the door, my entire body trembling. Should be good for another few hours, Ryan's voice said. You're sure she won't wake up? A deep, unfamiliar male voice asked. Never has before, Ryan replied with a casual laugh. Trust me, man. With the dosage I'm giving her, she won't remember a thing. Even if she somehow does. He laughed again. I felt my stomach drop. A cold, sharp horror sliced through me. There was a man in my house. Another man. And from the way they talked. This wasn't the first time. I should have run. Should have called the police. Should have screamed. But I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. The man I loved. The man I shared a bed with. Had been drugging me. Intentionally. Regularly. Purposefully. And he'd been letting strangers into our home while I was unconscious. The bruises. The pajamas. The memory gaps. Pieces slammed together violently. Oh God. Oh God. What had he done to me? What had he let them do? Somehow, I stumbled back to the bedroom. I don't remember walking. I only remember suddenly being there again, shaking violently. I crawled into the bed and pulled the covers over myself like a shield. An hour later, Ryan came back upstairs. He checked on me again. And I lay there. Eyes closed. Heartbreaking. Pretending to be unconscious. While inside. I was screaming on the inside. And the next morning, it felt like I was living in someone else's body. Ryan woke me up with coffee and a soft smile, kissed my forehead, and asked how I slept. How I slept. I stared into his eyes I thought I knew better than my own reflection. Eyes I once loved. And all I saw was a stranger. A liar. A monster. But I couldn't let him see that. I couldn't show even a flicker of what I knew. I had to play the part. The obedient, drugged, clueless wife he expected. I slept great, I lied, forcing a shaky smile, praying he'd think the trembling in my hands was just morning grogginess. Thanks, honey. He grinned. That same grin that once made me feel safe. And headed downstairs to make breakfast. The second he was gone, I bolted into the bathroom and threw up. I clung to the sink, staring at my reflection. My face was pale. My eyes were hollow. I barely recognized myself. Who was this woman? How had I let this happen? How had I missed the truth living inside my own home? But there was no time for shock. No time for self-blame. I needed answers. I needed proof. Because if I went to the police with nothing but a story, a feeling, they wouldn't believe me. Ryan was charming, intelligent, calm. He could talk his way out of anything. I needed evidence. Actual, undeniable evidence. While he was in the shower, I slipped into his office and grabbed his laptop. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel my pulse in my teeth. I tried every password I could think of. Our anniversary. His birthday. My birthday. His job ID. His favorite band. Nothing worked. That locked drawer sat there across the room like it was laughing at me. Mocking me. But I had nothing to pick the lock with, no tools, no time, no plan. So I put everything back perfectly. Exactly where it had been. At school that day, I functioned on autopilot. I taught my classes, but I couldn't tell you a single word I said. During lunch, I sat alone in my classroom and cried. When a coworker walked in and asked if I was okay, I couldn't speak. How do you look someone in the eyes and say, "My husband is drugging me"? Strangers come into my house at night. I don't know what's happening to me. It sounded insane even inside my own head. After school, instead of going home, I drove to Best Buy. I walked the aisles in a daze until I found what I needed. Hidden cameras. Tiny ones. Ones you could hide anywhere. I bought 2. Paid in cash. No trail. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes just staring at the bag. This was the point of no return. Once I planted these cameras, once I got evidence, there would be no pretending, no fixing, no forgiveness. My marriage would be over. My life would be ripped apart. But I had no choice. I couldn't keep living this horror. Ryan went for a run at 5:30 p.m. every day. Like clockwork. The second the door clicked shut behind him, I moved. I placed one camera in our bedroom, hidden in the bookshelf on my side of the bed, angled perfectly toward the nightstand where he always put the pills. I tested it on my phone, clear view, perfect angle. Then I ran downstairs. Going into the basement felt like walking into a grave. The air was stale. The lights buzzed faintly. The shadows felt too thick. This place, this dusty, unfinished storage space, suddenly felt like the heart of something evil. I found an air vent, pried off the cover with a screwdriver from Ryan's toolbox, and slipped the second camera inside, angled to cover the whole room. By the time I put the vent back, I heard Ryan's key in the front door. I sprinted upstairs. When he walked into the living room, I was sitting calmly on the couch, pretending to grade papers. He kissed the top of my head. "Hey babe. How was school?" "Good," I managed, forcing my voice not to shake. "How was your run?" "Great. I'm gonna shower." The moment I heard the water turn on, I checked the cameras. Both feeds were recording. To a cloud account he didn't know existed. Now I just had to wait. That night, when Ryan brought me my vitamins, it took every ounce of self-control I had not to slap them out of his hand and scream the truth in his face. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed more. I needed proof. So I took the pills from him calmly, put them in my mouth, and pretended to swallow. When he asked me to open my mouth, I did. The capsules tucked safely under my cheek. He smiled. "That's my good girl." I wanted to vomit. After he left the room, I spit the pills into my hand and flushed them. Then I crawled back into bed and prepared for war. Prepared to fight the drowsiness. Prepared to stay awake no matter how heavy my body felt. He came that night. Of course he did. At 2:15 a.m., I heard the basement door open. But this time, I stayed in bed. This time, I let the cameras be my eyes. Ryan was gone for nearly an hour. When he finally came back upstairs, he checked on me one more time, then slid into bed next to me like he hadn't just been living a double life. I repeated this for 3 nights. 3 nights of pretending. 3 nights of staying awake. 3 nights of letting the cameras catch everything he thought he was hiding. On the 4th night, he didn't go to the basement, which somehow terrified me even more. The next morning, he told me he was going to run errands, maybe grab lunch with a coworker. He said he'd be gone most of the day. The moment his car left the driveway, I ran to my laptop. I opened the camera feeds. And I swear, I thought I was prepared. I thought nothing could shock me anymore. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The bedroom footage confirmed what I already knew. Ryan bringing me the pills, watching me take them, checking on me once I was supposed to be unconscious. But it was the timestamps that destroyed me. The data showed this had been happening for 7 months. 7. Not 6. Not a few. 7 months of being drugged. Of losing time. Of having my life puppet without my knowledge. The footage showed more. Ryan scrolling through my phone while I slept. Typing messages. Deleting things. Controlling who I talked to and what I said. Then, the part that made my soul shatter. He changed my clothes. Lifted my limp arms. Moved my unconscious body. Repositioned me like I was a mannequin. A prop. I watched him move me. My body. Like I wasn't even human. The violation of it. The sheer cruelty. The absolute betrayal. It made me want to burn the world to ash. But none of that compared to what I saw next. The basement footage. I watched my husband, the man I promised to love, honor, and build a life with, lead men into our home. Not 1. Not 2. Men. Plural. Different faces. Different nights. I watched Ryan guide them downstairs, to that basement I had never questioned. And then I saw it. A camera on a tripod, already set up, pointed at something I couldn't see. That's when I understood. He wasn't just letting strangers into our house. He was charging them. I watched him take cash. Actual cash. Handed to him like he was running some kind of sick business. He'd show them something on his phone, pictures, based on their reactions. They'd smirk. Laugh. Nod. Hand over more money. And every time, their eyes drifted upward. Toward the ceiling. Toward where I was supposed to be unconscious in my bed. My skin crawled. My stomach twisted. I watched Ryan open his laptop for them, showing them something on the screen, and the men would lean in, reacting. Pointing. Laughing. The footage didn't show what was on that laptop. But I didn't need to see it. I knew. Pictures of me. Videos of me. Content he'd created while I was drugged and limp and unaware. Footage of my unconscious body. I was sitting at the kitchen table watching this, watching my reality crack open. And I couldn't breathe. Because the truth was no longer a suspicion. No longer a fear. No longer a nightmare. It was real. The man I loved. The man who slept beside me every night. Had been trafficking my body. He had been selling access to me. Without my consent. Without my knowledge. 4 months. 7 months. 7 months of filmed violations. 7 months of strangers in my home. 7 months of stolen autonomy. I found folders on the cloud account. Hundreds of video files, photos, metadata. stretching back almost 7 months. I couldn't open them. I couldn't make myself see what he'd done. The knowledge alone shattered something inside me. I slammed my laptop shut, ran to the bathroom, and threw up until I couldn't breathe. Then I collapsed on the bathroom floor, sobbing so hard my ribs felt like they might crack. How had this happened? How had I married a monster? How had I slept beside him? Kissed him? Trusted him? But grief quickly turned into something else. Rage. A rage so hot and consuming it felt like it could melt the bathroom tiles under my knees. He did this. He drugged me. He violated me. He sold me. He filmed me. He made money off my unconscious body. And I was done being his victim. I didn't trust myself to stay in that house another second. I packed a bag, hands shaking, heart racing. Clothes, my passport, my birth certificate, my laptop, anything important. Then I backed up the evidence to 3 cloud accounts. 2 USB drives. An external hard drive. I emailed the files to myself at 3 different hidden email addresses. I wasn't losing this evidence. I wasn't letting him escape accountability. Then I called Olivia. "I need you," I whispered, voice breaking. "Please. I need you right now." "I'm coming," she said instantly. "Where are you?" "I'm leaving the house. Meet me at the coffee shop on Whitaker." I didn't wait. I threw my bag in the trunk, got in my car, and drove away. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out of that house of nightmares and never went back. Olivia was already at the coffee shop when I arrived. The moment she saw my face, she froze. And then she rushed to me. We sat in the corner, away from everyone, and I told her everything. Every detail. The drugging. The memory gaps. The strange bruises. The locked drawer. The pills. The basement. The cameras. The men. The money. I watched emotions flash across her face. Shock, horror, disgust, then fury. "We're calling the police," Olivia said, voice shaking with anger. "Right now. We're not waiting. We're not thinking. We're doing it. What if they don't believe me?" I whispered. I hated how small I sounded. "Emily," she said, gripping my hands, "you have video evidence. You have timestamps. You have everything. They will believe you. And even if they don't, I will make them." She was right. I knew she was. But dialing that number was one of the hardest things I've ever done. We went to Olivia's house because I couldn't walk into a police station and say these things out loud to strangers. Not yet. Olivia called the non-emergency number and calmly told them that her friend needed to report a serious crime. Within 30 minutes, 2 officers knocked on her door. One was a woman, Detective Laura Bennett. Her eyes were sharp but kind. And when I started speaking, she simply listened. She didn't interrupt. Didn't judge. Didn't flinch. When I showed her the footage, not all of it, never all of it, but enough. I watched her face transform. Concern. Then anger. Then something like protective fury. "Ms. Carter," Detective Bennett said quietly, "what your husband has done is a serious crime. Multiple crimes. We need you to come to the station to give a formal statement. We also need to get you an emergency protective order." "Today?" I whispered. "You can do that today?" "We're going to try," she said. "It's an active threat to your safety. We need to move quickly." Going to the station felt surreal. Sitting in the interview room. Saying those words out loud. Hearing my own voice tremble. It didn't feel like me. Detective Bennett was thorough and patient. She asked hard questions, necessary questions. She walked me through things I didn't want to relive. But by the end of it, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. A sliver, small but real. The emergency protective order was approved that afternoon. Ryan wasn't allowed to contact me or come near me. I stayed with Olivia that night. We sat on her couch in silence, because there were no words big enough for what I felt. The next morning, the police executed a search warrant at my house. Detective Bennett called around noon. They found everything. The locked drawer in Ryan's office? Hard drives. Full of images and videos of me. Some dating back to before we were even married. He'd been planning this. He'd been building toward it. Maybe from the beginning. They found customer lists. Payment logs. Cryptocurrency transactions. Conversations with dozens of men. And the pills? They weren't vitamins. They contained Rohypnol, a powerful date rape drug. Poison disguised as care. Ryan was arrested that afternoon at his workplace. I wasn't there. But Detective Bennett told me he tried to run. Tried to fight them. They tackled him in the parking lot. In front of his coworkers. In front of everyone who thought he was just a normal guy. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was him. Ryan. I almost didn't answer. But some part of me needed to hear what he could possibly say. Emily, he said, sounding so normal it made my skin crawl. Baby, please. This is just a misunderstanding. I can explain. I laughed. I actually laughed, and it sounded broken, hysterical. Explain what, Ryan? I snapped. How you drugged me for 7 months. How you sold access to my unconscious body. Which part exactly is the misunderstanding? It wasn't like that, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. I never let anyone touch you. I swear. It was just pictures, just videos of you sleeping. Nothing else. I needed the money. We had debt. We didn't have debt. I screamed into the phone, shaking with rage. We were fine, Ryan. We were fine. You did this because you're sick. You did this because you're a predator and a monster, and you saw an opportunity to violate your own wife for profit. Emily, please. I hope you rot, I said, and my voice didn't even sound like my own anymore. It was cold. Dead. I hope you spend every day of your pathetic life remembering what you did. I hope you never know peace again. I hope the guilt eats you alive. I hung up. He tried calling again, but I blocked him. That was the last time I ever heard Ryan's voice. The legal process that followed was hell. I had to testify in front of a grand jury. A room full of strangers. And explain in detail what had been done to me. What I'd discovered. How it felt to watch footage of my unconscious body being used and sold like I was an object. Some of the jurors cried. One man had to step out because he couldn't handle hearing it. But they indicted him. On multiple counts. Administering drugs without consent. Sexual exploitation. Distribution of intimate images. Trafficking-related offenses. The prosecutor told me this was one of the strongest cases she'd seen. Because I'd gathered evidence before confronting him. Ryan's lawyer tried everything. He tried to say I was unreliable because of memory issues. Issues Ryan himself caused by drugging me. He suggested I had agreed to being filmed. He tried to claim our marriage had some kind of arrangement. But the prosecution destroyed that argument. They had timestamps. Drug analysis. Footage of Ryan drugging me. Proof of payments. Messages from men he'd sold content to. They even found some of his customers. 3 of them agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. 3 men took the stand and admitted they paid Ryan for access. One of them said he made it sound harmless. Like she knew about it. Like she was into it. Then the prosecutor showed him the footage of Ryan slipping pills into my water. The man started sobbing on the stand. I didn't know, he kept saying. I swear I didn't know he was drugging her. But deep down, they all knew. You don't pay for secret footage of a man's unconscious wife if you think everything is innocent. You don't sneak into someone's house at 2 a.m. with clean intentions. They knew. Maybe not the whole truth, but enough. And I hope they live with that guilt for the rest of their lives. The trial dragged on for 8 long months. 8 months of hearings. 8 months of revisiting the trauma every time I had to speak to the prosecutor. 8 months of living at Olivia's house because I couldn't be alone. Couldn't sleep without checking every lock twice. Couldn't close my eyes without wondering if someone was watching me. My therapist, Dr. Caroline Marsh, saved my sanity. She specialized in trauma, especially sexual trauma. And she helped me understand something important. What happened to me wasn't my fault. I couldn't have known. Couldn't have prevented it. Couldn't have done anything differently. Emily, she told me one day as I sat shaking on her couch. Predators choose targets who are trusting, loving, empathetic. That's not a flaw. That's what makes you a good person. He weaponized your kindness. That doesn't make you weak. It makes him dangerous. It took months for me to believe her. Because Ryan hadn't just violated my body. He'd violated my identity. I didn't know who I was anymore. Was I the woman I had been during those 7 months? Or had Ryan drugged that version of me into existence? What was real? What was fake? Who was I? Dr. Marsh helped me peel back those layers, reminding me that the core of who I was hadn't been destroyed. It had just been buried beneath trauma. The trial finally went to the jury in month 7. And then came the hardest part. I had to testify. I had to sit on the stand for 3 days while Ryan's lawyer tried to tear me apart. Tried to paint me as unstable, vindictive, manipulative. He claimed I planted the cameras myself. He suggested I forged the footage. He even tried to imply I enjoyed being filmed. The prosecutor objected. The judge sustained the objections. But the damage lingered. I had to defend my reality in front of the man who had destroyed it. But then the prosecution brought out everything. The hard drives. The customer lists. The payments. The vitamins containing Rohypnol. The timestamps proving I was unconscious. The toxicologist explaining exactly what the drug did to my brain. The camera metadata. The messages from men who had paid to access me. Piece by piece, they built the truth. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. 6 hours that felt like 6 years. I sat in the hallway with Olivia on one side and my mom on the other, holding on to them like lifelines. When the jury returned, I could barely breathe. Guilty, the foreperson said. Guilty on every count. My body collapsed before my mind even processed the words. I fell into Olivia's arms and sobbed so violently I couldn't speak. It was over. The nightmare, at least the courtroom part of it, was finally over. They believed me. A room of strangers believed me. 3 weeks later was the sentencing hearing. I stood in front of that courtroom, in front of Ryan, and gave my victim impact statement. I had practiced it with Dr. Marsh until I could speak without breaking. You took 7 months of my life, I began, voice steady. You stole my safety, my trust, my peace. You turned my body into a crime scene. You lied to my face every day while you violated me. You made me question my sanity, my memory, my worth. Ryan was crying. Actual tears. I didn't care. His tears meant nothing. I will never feel safe the way I used to, I continued. You took that from me. But here's what you didn't take. You didn't take my strength. You didn't take my resilience. You didn't take my ability to rebuild a life without you. I took a breath. You thought you could break me. But I'm still standing. You're the one in chains. Ryan Hale was sentenced to 18 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 12. And he'll be registered as a sex offender for the rest of his life. When he gets out, if he gets out, Ryan will be in his 50s. And everyone will know exactly what he is. Every job application. Every apartment rental. Every background check. Every glance from a neighbor who Googles him. His identity will forever be stamped with the thing he did to me. And honestly, it still isn't enough. 18 years will never equal 7 months of violation. 7 months of being drugged, used, recorded, sold like I was inventory. 18 years won't erase the lifetime of trauma I carry. But it's something. It's as close to justice as the system can realistically give me. The divorce finalized 6 months after the criminal trial. I got everything. Ryan's lawyer tried to argue, tried to negotiate. But it's hard to spin a deal when your client is a convicted sex offender who trafficked his wife. I kept the house only long enough to sell it. I never wanted to see those walls again. I liquidated his retirement accounts, his savings, every cent he had left. Then I donated most of it to organizations supporting survivors of sexual violence. I kept enough to pay off my student loans. And enough to start a new life somewhere far from Atlanta. Because everywhere I went there, I saw ghosts. Our favorite brunch spot where he smiled across the table while secretly planning my exploitation. The grocery store where we bought fruit and bread while he was drugging me. The gym where he pretended to be a devoted husband, when in reality, he was profiting off my unconscious body. I couldn't breathe in that city anymore. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. New city. New teaching job. New life. Olivia helped me move. She stayed with me during the first week, helping set up my small apartment, helping me feel grounded when the nights were too quiet. My mom begged me to move back to Memphis. Closer to her, where she could watch over me. But I needed to prove to myself that I could live alone. Sleep alone. Exist without feeling like someone was standing over my bed. It was brutal at first. I woke up drenched in sweat, convinced someone was in my apartment. I checked every lock 5 times before bed. I installed security cameras, real ones this time, cameras only I could access. And I monitored them obsessively. I couldn't even swallow Advil without shaking. The sight of pills made my stomach twist and my throat close. Dr. Caroline Marsh connected me with a trauma therapist in Charlotte. Dr. Ethan Ward, and I continued therapy twice a week. We worked on the PTSD, the hypervigilance, the panic, the dread. We worked on rebuilding trust, trust in myself, trust in the world, trust in people who weren't Ryan. Progress was slow. Painful. 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Some days I wanted to give up. Some days I thought this damaged, fearful version of me was all that was left. But I kept going. Because if I quit, Ryan would win. And I refused to give him that victory. And gradually, so slowly I almost missed it, I started healing. Good days began to outnumber the bad ones. I slept through the night sometimes. I accepted dinner invitations from coworkers. I laughed again, real laughter, not the hollow, brittle kind I'd gotten used to. About a year after moving to Charlotte, I met someone. His name is Adam Blake. I know I told myself I wasn't ready for dating. God knows I wasn't looking for it. But Adam was different. He was the school guidance counselor. Quiet. Steady. Gentle in ways that didn't feel performative. He asked me to get coffee one day after a staff meeting. I almost said no. Letting someone close again felt impossible. But something in his voice, the way he phrased the question, the respect in his tone. I said yes. On our 3rd date, I told him everything. We were sitting in his car outside my apartment. He had asked, carefully, softly, if he could kiss me. The question triggered something deep inside me. And the story spilled out. The vitamins, the cameras, the trial, the violation, the aftermath. By the time I stopped talking, I was shaking. Convinced he'd leave. Convinced I was too broken for anyone to willingly love. Adam didn't say anything at first. He just breathed with me. Then he whispered, "Thank you for trusting me." I can't imagine how hard that was. But Emily, you survived something unimaginable. You saved yourself. You fought for justice. That takes strength most people never discover. If you'll let me, I want to be someone who makes your life easier. But we go at your pace. No pressure. No expectations. I cried. Hard. And when he held me, it felt like the first safe touch I'd had in years. We've been together for 8 months now. It's not perfect. I still panic. Still have nightmares. Still struggle with trust. But Adam is patient. He reminds me to take my anxiety meds when I forget. He doesn't question me when I double-check his phone. He honors my boundaries. He never pushes. He's teaching me that not all men are predators. That intimacy can be safe. That love can be gentle and steady and kind. It's been 2 years now since the night I pretended to swallow those pills. 2 years since my life shattered. 2 years since I started rebuilding myself from rubble. Sometimes I still can't believe it happened. Sometimes I still wake up and expect it all to have been a nightmare. That I'll open my eyes and find myself back in Atlanta, Ryan handing me coffee like everything is normal. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real. And I survived it. And I'm still here. I'm still teaching. I adore my Charlotte students just like I adored the ones in Atlanta. My job gives me purpose, gives me structure, gives me something to anchor myself to on the hard days. I'm still in therapy. I probably will be for a long time. Healing isn't linear. It's layered and complicated and ongoing. Ryan tried to appeal his sentence. His new lawyer argued that 18 years was excessive. He wanted the court to allow early parole. The appeal was denied. He's in a medium-security prison now in Georgia. His public record shows multiple disciplinary issues. Apparently, even other inmates consider him disgusting. Good. I hope every day in there chips away at him. Some of the men who bought content were prosecuted too. The 3 who testified got reduced sentences but still served time. Others were charged with crimes related to purchasing or possessing the images. I testified at several of those trials. It was exhausting, reliving the story again and again. But necessary. One man tried to approach me afterward in the parking lot to apologize. Adam stepped between us immediately. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," the man said. "I'm in treatment now. I'm getting help." I looked at him and felt nothing. "You're not sorry you did it," I said. "You're sorry you got caught." He opened his mouth to argue, but I walked away. I didn't owe him a conversation. I didn't owe him forgiveness. I owed him nothing. There are warning signs I wish I had known. And now, I share them with anyone who will listen. Because if my story can save even one person, then something good came from the nightmare. If your partner insists on giving you medication or supplements, question it. Ask for labels. Research the brand. If something feels off, get it tested. Trust your instincts. If you experience unexplained blackouts or memory gaps, take it seriously. See your own doctor, not one your partner chooses. Get blood work done. Tell someone you trust. Tell them you're scared you may be getting drugged. Say it plainly. If you're waking up foggy, in clothes you don't remember changing into. If you have bruises you can't explain. If your body feels used but your mind has no memory. Do not ignore it. Do not let anyone tell you you're imagining things. Do not let a partner brush off your fear. Do not convince yourself it's normal. It isn't. If your partner is obsessed with controlling your sleep schedule, when you eat, what you drink, how you spend your day, pay attention. Control is often the first sign of something much darker. If your phone shows messages you don't remember sending, if your social media has posts you never made, if your belongings are in different places than you remember, someone is accessing your life without your knowledge and without your permission. Find out who. Find out why. And don't wait. Most importantly, trust your instinct. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Your intuition is wired for survival. Mine was screaming for months, but I kept silencing it, telling myself I was paranoid, emotional, dramatic. Ignoring my instincts almost destroyed me. If you think you're being drugged, controlled, violated, please reach out. Tell a friend, a family member, a coworker, or call for help. You deserve safety. You deserve autonomy over your own body. You deserve to live without fear. Let me be very clear. What happened to me is not rare. People don't want to believe that intimate partner assault, drugging, hidden recordings, image-based abuse happen as often as they do. We want to believe the person lying next to us at night could never be the one causing harm. But sometimes the monster isn't a stranger. Sometimes it's the person you trust most. And if you've gone through anything like what I survived, please hear me. It is not your fault. I blamed myself for months. I drowned in guilt, telling myself I should have known, should have noticed, should have been smarter. But Dr. Caroline Marsh was right. Predators are skilled. Manipulation is a craft. Lies are tools. They make you doubt yourself because that doubt protects them. You didn't cause what happened. You didn't deserve it. And you couldn't have prevented it. You deserve healing. You deserve peace. You deserve a future that is safe, whole, and yours again. It won't be easy. I won't sugarcoat it. Healing is hard and messy and non-linear. But it is possible. You are stronger than you think. I'm Emily Carter. I'm 36 years old. I'm a high school English teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have a partner now who respects boundaries, who listens, who never pushes. I have friends who show up for me, a therapist who helps me rebuild piece by piece. I sleep in an apartment with strong locks and cameras I control. I only take medication prescribed directly to me by a doctor I choose. I am healing from the worst violation I could have imagined. And if I can survive what Ryan Hale did to me, if I can crawl out of that nightmare and rebuild my life from the rubble, then you can survive whatever you're facing too. You can get out. You can heal. You can reclaim the life someone tried to steal from you. Ryan stole 7 months from me. He stole my safety, my ability to trust easily, my innocence about what people are capable of. But he didn't take my strength. He didn't take my resilience. He didn't take the part of me determined to not just survive, but rebuild. I'm still here. I'm still standing. And so can you. If you've stayed with my story this long, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing what I lived through. Please share this video if it might help someone. Hit subscribe if you want to follow my healing journey. And drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, what time it is, and whether any part of my story resonated with you. Stay safe. Trust your instinct. Protect yourself and the people you love. You deserve safety, respect, and complete control over your own body. Always. No exceptions. This is Emily signing off. And to anyone out there living through something similar, you're not alone. You're believed. You're valued. And you can make it out. I promise.